In the summer of 1994, he so badly wanted arches in his hair. He daydreamed and night dreamed of it. 8th grade was going to be his year.
He daydreamed and night dreamed of it.
I liked that.
I like that too.
Go! Play Brotherhood! Play Brotherhood! Nick are out of control. They would crash the airwaves with a microphone. So sit down tight and listen close. All the ladies now take off your clothes. Play Brotherhood! Play Brotherhood!
That was a case where it was like, you can't have arches in your hair because, like, Dad's big defense was always that, oh, I've always had the same haircut. Just like the shoes thing. Like, I have the same shoes for the last 10 years. It's like, I don't change. Why would you want to change?
Right. Dad's haircut was pretty impressive, though.
Yeah. I remember him bragging about always having the same haircut. He just brushed it back when he got out of the shower, and it all fell into place. That didn't even work with our hair.
Do you think Dad ever had a rebellious streak? Remember that picture
No.
we saw of him with the big fatty watch when he was a teenager and posing with his guitar?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he played guitar almost makes him rebellious in my head.
It was a bass
Only because it's a
guitar.
side of him I don't... A bass guitar is cooler, isn't it?
Didn't you ever see him jamming out, like, in the video store? If a good bass track is on, he'll pretend like he's jamming out to it. Barry even pointed out when we last saw him about, he was like bragging about how Dad and him were the only ones that like never did anything. They're the two brothers who can't drink beer without having an allergic reaction and never even took a puff of a cigarette, everything like that.
I used to pride myself on those things. And, well, no, I guess I drank when I was 19 for the first time. Because we went to Canada.
Well,
and it was legal.
we'd have beers every now and then.
Oh, growing
Like
up, you
family
mean?
reunions and stuff.
Yeah, occasionally, but I wasn't an excessive drinker until way, way, way later. And I think it threw
Right.
Mom. Oh, not Mom. Mom was drunk when I told her the first time I confessed my alcoholism. But Dad was, I remember, this is after he'd left the house, got remarried, had hardly anything to do with us. And I couldn't wait. I relished the first time that I lit a cigarette in front of him.
Yeah.
And usually I'm not that petty and I could give a shit. But with Dad, I was just waiting for him to flip me shit, which he did for like the first 10 times I saw him after that.
He didn't say anything to me when he first saw me.
Well, it's expected from you.
I was such a lost cause already.
You were on a bad path from an early age. Me, however, I had a chance. And even though I was the only one hanging on to the religion after even our parents had left, when I fell in a big way. And I think it surprised especially Dad.
Really?
Mom seemed grateful almost.
What sort of guidance did he give to keep it from happening?
I'm not saying he did. I think he just, this is going to prove a distraction. We're watching the third Jaws on TV. Oh, man, you turned it off?
Yeah. I can't look at that shark without laughing.
Because we don't have the 3D glasses.
That's true. Are you supposed to think that the shark is swimming through the theater at you? How does that scare you?
I don't know. Maybe like a severed arm flies into your lap.
Maybe, but that doesn't look like what that scene was right there. Close-up of Dennis Quaid screaming and then this shark floating. Sorry.
No, a big thing about that movie was as we mentioned before we started, Michael Caine's in it, and he could not accept an Academy Award for something worthwhile that he did, or he did, but he did it from the set of Jaws 3.
Really?
And has never been able to live that down.
Wow.
Yeah, couldn't even make an appearance at the Academy Awards. I don't care how low scale of an actor I, at one point in my life, will probably be. I'll go to the Oscars.
Yeah.
Right? I make fun of it, and I think it's boring for like 80% of the time it's on TV.
You mean if you're invited to just sit in somewhere in the crowd and watch, not nominated for anything, of course.
Right. No, but the Jonas Brothers are at the Academy Awards this year. It's not like they've been in a movie. But
Right.
let's say I achieve, not Jonas Brothers level of fame. One could be so lucky. But, I'm just saying, like, I would have no problem. Like, it would give me an excuse to what I think is mingling with celebrities, which means hassling them around the deli tray at an after
everybody
party.
would. Everybody would go to that. It's not weird.
I don't know.
that
You
go
see
to the
those
Oscars.
pompous guys that are like, oh, man, I have no interest. I'd never go.
Wow.
I'd never go.
Yeah.
You never notice unless they actually got nominated for something and aren't there. And then there's that still frame where it should be them sitting in the crowd.
I'd go and I'd bring my mom because everyone always thinks that's so sweet. Like a Ben Affleck brings his mom to the Oscars.
But Ben Affleck doesn't have our mom. Can you imagine Mom at the Oscars?
Oh, my God. That would be too funny.
She's like, I'm nervous, drinking the whole way.
Why are we talking about, like, when we go to the Oscars?
I'm just saying, when it happens, Mom will throw up in Susan Sarandon's lap.
Do you ever in your 20s have long, drawn-out fantasies about stuff like that? Because mine is always, like, winning an event at the World Series of Poker. And in the half an hour it takes me to walk to work, I seriously have thought about nothing but that the entire time. And, like, the scenario, who I'm playing against, what my speech is. How much do you break it down,
though? Are you thinking about...
I'm thinking about
the clothes you'd wear, the plane ride there.
Yep, the clothes I'd wear.
Sure, everybody does.
No, I'm thinking about my on-camera interview afterwards, like what I'm wearing, how I acted at the table, what hand I won with, and who I beat to win it, and what I'm gonna say. What funny thing can I say on television right now?
Yeah, they need to spice that up. Most of those guys.
It's a little embarrassing, though. I'm in my late 20s.
I think it's just, you said, takes me a half hour to walk to work. I'm going to think about this. It'll cruise on by.
Yeah.
Going back to episode 33, Nick K, Meow Games, it's the same thing as him pretending he was the drummer in Blink-182.
Yeah, but he's a fucking weirdo.
Plus, he was like 15 at the time.
Yeah.
No, I know what you're saying, though. Like, even when it comes to this here podcast, I sometimes think, oh, man, what if we ever got popular enough to where a live show was demanded of us? Like, what would be on the roster for that day?
Yeah.
Turns out nothing. If we ever do a live show, I think we should go in ill-prepared. Probably sober, though.
Well, if we could have done a screening for The Room, like, we could have done some funny stuff there.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Did
you have any ideas?
Not really a live show in the midst. Well, I wanted to get the guy who played Denny because Brian used to know him or whatever. And I thought it'd be so funny to have Denny out and be interviewing him for the show and just see if he wants to strike up a game of catch with the football on the stage. And maybe we're all wearing tuxedos.
This might be lost on some people if they haven't heard 43, but Rent the Room. And, in fact, you want to shut down and watch that?
I don't, man. That is pretty uncomfortable to watch. There's way too much nudity in it.
It's uncomfortable to watch when it's just you and I watching it. Yeah, it's a group picture to be sure.
I feel bad that we strayed off the whole dad thing.
There's not much. It's just going to make me angry.
There's so much there to yell at him about.
What haven't we already covered on the show before? People know why to hate dad.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I guess basically that was it. It was always like he hated himself, but it was like the shoes thing and the haircut thing and just whatever else. Like not liking if I said a grip as slang and stuff like that. It's like, why do you want us to be just like you? You hate yourself. You know what I mean? But at the same time, not like you because you won't allow us to like get a car, learn how to drive, anything like that.
That's right. He was always really weird about that.
And that was another thing is why did he want us to
just
just
be progression
like,
to adulthood that scared him?
Why did he want us to just be home-stricken when he couldn't stand to be around us?
I didn't mind the home-stricken part of it so much, and it's not like we were itching to go out and get hammered and sneak back home.
It's not, but if we were normal, maybe we would have wanted to do that kind of thing.
I don't doubt it. Like, if I could live my life differently, this is what I think about on my half-hour walk to work. If I could start from 16 over again, good God.
Oh, to know what you knew now.
Oh, yeah. Not that I'm like world wise now.
Not even 16, because 16 was like right at the end of it.
You want to start right at kindergarten, don't you?
No, I want to go back a little further, maybe 8th grade.
8th grade?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'd like
confessing my love for Barbara.
If we're gonna go back that far, I say I got to start at least middle school all over again because I think that's what fucked me and made me the person I am. Is that I was so lost in middle school and just like such a mess in a lot of different ways and. I don't know. I think if I'd had a healthier public school experience, I might be a better person now. Mom always said, you're missing out on the best years of your life when we dodged out of high school.
Yeah.
I still don't believe that.
Coke-addled and sleeping around.
Yeah. Do you think that you would have lost your virginity earlier if you'd gone to public high school? It would not have happened for us at the rate we were going.
Yeah, I doubt it. At least not to anyone worthwhile, and especially if like we were still trying to stay Jehovah's Witnesses during high school.
Yeah, which I don't know. Maybe high school would have turned me against it earlier than it did.
But see, I had going into high school, thinking about going to high school, I had the same visions that I thought about going into like middle school or at least in the 8th grade, which was that like I'm going to be cool this year. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to
It
take a
wouldn't even
shower
have to be the
every
beginning of the
day.
year. I would do the same thing. It would be like, 2 months left before summer, and I'd be like, nope, this is the day. Nobody's going to remember the Nick from the last 6 months. I'm going to show up. My hair is going to be parted differently.
I'm going to
and I'm going to own this school.
Change my clothes, like not the same pair of pants over and over again. But I just couldn't do it. Like when you wake up 5 minutes before you have to be at school, you don't have enough time.
Yeah, well, that was your own fault, though.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it either. And in fact, I don't know if I've told this story on the show before, but I want to say 6th, but truthfully it was probably 7th or 8th grade. And I had next to no friends in school. The ones I had, like, you know how that all went.
Yeah.
All of my friendships crumbled by the end of 8th grade, and I was at the point where...
Plus, these were friends who were like on your level. It's not like they're popular and you can laugh.
No, not at all. And I know I have talked about it because whether or not they were as unpopular as I was, which they were, at least they'd have my back and were like twice my size if somebody tried to beat me up, which for the most part worked out for me. But the story I was going to tell is... I'm going to say it, and then it's going to sound like... I don't know. I feel like maybe... I would assume, like, let's say I'm a guidance counselor walking around and seeing what I'm about to describe. I would assume mental instability.
Okay.
Which is the quantum leap thing. Like, I was so obsessed with quantum leap.
In
and
middle
had
school?
Middle school, yeah.
And you'd play it in middle school? Like, we'd go home and play it, sure.
No. This had nothing to do with you. This was my own personal game every day. This is how I would keep myself sane in school. And it would just be like I would come up with a scenario on the walk to school, and it was always the same thing. Sam Beckett is leaping into Nick Allworth's body. And so, like, I would show up to school, and I would pretend that the hologram, oh no, I don't know where my locker is. And then Al shows up in a vision just in the nick of time to guide me to my locker. I know it was middle school because I wouldn't know how to I wouldn't know the combination of my locker unless Al was there to help me with Ziggy.
Like you walk into homeroom, look around at all the kids and go, oh boy.
Yeah. I always, but I did it or not silently, but just muttered it to myself.
Much like Sam did.
Yeah. And then I would try and, whatever girl I happen to have a crush on at the time, like in my head, it was my mission to prevent this bully from impregnating. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It was really awful. But those are the things I had to do to keep myself entertained during the day.
I can remember in like 6th grade, that was when Sliders came out, and I would always like draw pictures of the vortex in which I wish I could slide around to different dimensions and think up really elaborate stories about that in my head. But I never thought I was doing it. I didn't jump into my locker.
Did I make it sound like that? I'm just saying the way that I would sit there and mutter to myself is an indication of instability. But, and it makes sense. I'm not saying that I'd still like Corey. Remember that kid, that bully that was way shorter than me? He was in my grade, not yours.
Probably not.
But he kicked my ass at Ryan Park one time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, if I saw that kid and recognized him now, I'd still want to hit him. And it's not probably because I didn't deserve a lot of it, although I wasn't as big a shit talker as you were in school.
Yeah.
But you got beat up a lot. I just got threatened a lot, although Corey actually did beat me up.
I was there that day, too. I think I pushed him or something.
I'm sure you did. And then I was like, fuck off, PJ.
You ruined it for me. You made him more mad.
Yeah. And then my Quantum Leap fantasy the next day was replaced by a fantasy of, I remember just having visions of, all of a sudden being stronger than Corey, and I caught him without his posse to help him. And I remember literally imagining me snapping him over my knee, like breaking him in half. Who thinks that way, even as an 8th grader? Like that doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. You mentioned that before, though, about like wanting to break kids' necks and stuff like that.
Well, they would, I've never...
you always seemed, and maybe you were just like easier at hiding your feelings, but you always seemed like that kind of shit didn't bother you.
Oh, it infuriated me.
Like a weird example is that, like, I remember when we'd be coming home and like we'd be hoping we could stop at McDonald's on the way home, and then we'd just drive right by. I would be so fucking mad in the back seat, like probably hitting the seat and muttering to myself, and you're like, shut up, dude. Who cares?
I was just in it to get you upset even more.
I know, but how did that
I can think of another example, but you fucked this up for us. We had plans with Dad to go see The Rocketeer when that came out, and then you said some flippant thing, and Dad just drove us home. That time I was mad at you specifically, yeah.
The Rocketeer, when did that come out? How old was I?
I don't know, 8 or 9
years old?
probably.
That's not my fault. It's unfair of Dad to make my brother, who I spend all my time with, hate me because he's obviously in too bad of a mood to drive us to the movie.
The other time you really fucked me over was when we had plans to go see, not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which we loved, but Honey, what's the second one? Blew Up the Kid?
Blew Up the Kid,
yeah. Because that franchise needed to keep going.
Yeah.
But we had plans to see that, and you were like legitimately sick, like running a fever sick, and I was so pissed at you that was going to prevent us from seeing it that day. And I remember I'd heard from somewhere before, and I really was just using you, and you put ice cubes in your mouth based on my encouragement so that your fever would drop the next time Mom checked your temperature. Do you remember that?
No.
It didn't work. We didn't end up seeing it for a couple days, and I'm pretty sure I ignored you the whole time. It's funny, the petty shit. Like, even back in elementary school, I'm sorry to take over the show.
No.
Even in elementary school, I remember, we'd get in some bullshit fight about some stupid thing that ended up with us rolling around on the ground and pulling each other's hair.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, fuck PJ. Well, I wouldn't say that, of course, but I'd be like, I'm never, ever going to talk to him again. And I would believe that in my head. I would tie a string around my finger so that the next day when I woke up, I remembered that I still hated you and was never going to talk to you again.
How long did that ever last? Like I said, you were a little better about that. You could hide yourself in your room with your fuzzy porn tapes and
this is
just shut me out.
Fuzzy porn.
It never lasted very long for me because I would do the same thing. Like,
we're
I'm not
only a year and a
going to
half
talk to him
apart.
again.
We were pretty much going through the same shit at approximately the same time.
But you were unwilling to let us go through it together.
I know. Well, we're making up for that now. Seems like there was one more thing about Dad I wanted to touch on.
I think a lot of people hear about the nudity that Dad flaunted in front of us and are kind of surprised.
Well, you won't shut the fuck up about it. That's one thing.
Surprised and sickened by it.
Is it that weird? I'd like to get an email or two. Like, how many? Is it that weird to see your parents naked? It's not like he was shoving his cock down your throat,
right? I don't know. It just seemed weird, especially since he was so like shut down, or whatever, emotionally or whatever, shut off about so many other things.
But that might almost explain it. I think. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't care if I'm traumatizing my kids. Look at it. Look at it.
Maybe.
You shut up over there. Should we explain that we're babysitting?
The baby's here. She's being a good girl until Nick screams at her.
That's my shtick this weekend. Is that why your wife has been ignoring me since I've been here?
My wife asked me in bed last night, she's like, am I being very nice to Nick? And I was like, not very, but it's okay. But I think she felt guilty.
I think she was mad at me. The three of us were playing Scrabble last night, and your daughter Sophie was running around. And this wasn't directed at her, but at some point, like, something pissed me off in the game, and I yelled, "Fuck her!" And then immediately Sophie pipes up because she parrots everything now and says, "Fuck her." And I did not mean for that to happen, and I think that may have made Alvina more mad at me than she was already.
That gets under Alvina's skin, but there's no way I could not cuss in front of the baby.
And I don't, this has been talked about recently on another podcast, but I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, be yourself around your kid. I'm not saying encourage them to swear.
Right.
But don't scold them. I mean, going back to our parents again, we, I would lord that over you. If I caught you swearing, like at school or something, that would be my go-to threat. Like, don't piss me off, PJ, or tick me off, I'm sure I said.
Yeah.
Or else I'm going to tell mom and dad about this or this or this.
I remember one thing you used to do that I would always catch you do was sneaking soda upstairs to your room.
I had a whole operation, man.
Yeah, like you would just like hide it and like kind of obscure it with your forearm or whatever. And even when I was like, fuck him, and I went and ratted you out, Mom didn't give a fuck. Who cares? Quit tattling.
Well, Mom was a big Coke drinker. Dad was a big Diet Coke drinker. And, I still
went through it so fast. It's not like they could ever keep count of how many were in there.
No, but I remember at one point they gave us a limit. They bought so much soda in the house. And I think we got up to like 3 a day by the time we were homeschooling. And I was so ridiculous. Like, they would buy the big 24 packs. And then to cover my tracks, I would steal soda, go upstairs and guzzle it in my room. But then I would take the empty back down and then like put it towards the back of the 24 pack so that it still like shaped out well and looked like it was the same amount. And then by the time I got down to 3 or 4, I would go and take out the empty. Except for the one time I forgot and got busted by Dad.
Really?
Yeah. You don't remember that?
No.
Yeah.
What would he even think? Oh, there's an empty in here, and now he's got your whole plan figured out?
Yeah.
Well, your plan was pretty transparent.
No, but usually, that was just a temporary solution. Oh, like when you just buy it, you notice that, oh, a couple of sodas are missing. So you got to never mind. I'm not going to give away my tricks to you. What if I need to do that again someday with beer?
Sometimes I do remember, like I remember that there used to be like candy drawers and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll have the occasional dream about like being in that house and like going through that candy drawer and like finding something really good in there.
Was the candy drawer the same place you found Mom's diary that time?
Yeah, I think so. Mom's diary was out of control.
How old were you when you found it?
Oh, probably 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. It was right around the time Grandpa died. So
it's right around
13.
the time you and Mom fucking hated each other.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was the PJ show through and through, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm sure in fact, I got a story after this about the journal. But
this diary was just filled with hateful things about me. Like, I'm going to kill myself. And I remember there being pages like, after I'm dead and you read this, tell PJ it's his fault I killed myself.
Holy shit.
And stuff like that, just all the time.
Are you sure you're not exaggerating in your head?
I swear to God, because I remember somehow bringing it up in front of Denise once, with Mom there too. Maybe after Grandpa died, or maybe when Denise came with Grandpa.
Our Aunt Denise, sure.
And I said something about it, and Mom was like, yeah, it is going to be your fault. And if I go in the loony bin, that's going to be your fault too. And Denise had been in some sort of mental hospital for exhaustion, and she was like, Jackie, don't ever tell your kids that is their fault. What if it happens? They're going to think that. She's like, good, because it will be his fault.
Yeah, never my fault though, right?
Yeah. No, not yours. You were great.
Well, did she mention me in the diary at all?
I remember a specific line, which was like, PJ is so awful, I just can't stand to be around him anymore. Stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's not like, she wasn't keeping that a secret anyway.
No,
whether
I know.
you found the diary or
nor
not,
was
she's
she
still
keeping...
saying those same exact things in front of you to Dad when he came home from work every night.
Mm-hmm. And she wasn't keeping the diary well hidden at all.
No. In fact, I think she wanted us to find it. Years later, it was when I was dating Storytelling. It's probably in the early 2000s, and Mom had her episode. Oh. You have a better memory for me when it comes to like psychotic things that Mom and Dad have done in their lives.
Only if it really affected me in the moment.
Okay, and one thing that really affected me that was relatively, I don't know where I was going with
it. It was
that.
recent. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, it was the early 2000s probably.
Yeah.
I had just started dating Storytelling.
I was married.
In fact, I don't even think Storytelling had met Mom or Dad for the first time yet, and Mom, like, she's always been crazy, but all of a sudden she was like off her rocker, out of control. And I can't remember what the situation was. For some reason, oh, okay. So I was living with her temporarily. I was 20 years old. I was living with Mom and Vincent. And one morning I had to use her shower because I didn't want to get Vincent's athlete foot. So I would use Mom's shower, and I could tell she was going a little nutty. Like, she was calling into work a lot all of a sudden, and she would just spend most of her day in her room. And it was obvious whenever she did come out that she'd been crying and stuff. So like something was going on. And she was watching like a Jenny Jones, Sally Jesse type show about teen pregnancy. And I just happened to notice that as I was going into the shower, and then I come back out, and in the 10 minutes it took me to shower and dress and come back out, she had convinced herself that me, just having started dating Storytelling, had gotten her pregnant and was hiding that from Mom. To the point where Mom started calling family members and anybody she knew that knew of my relationship with Storytelling, and was spreading the rumor that I had gotten her pregnant. Meanwhile, we had not even kissed at this point. Like, it was still long distance at this point in our relationship. And where it had gotten to Lori, who had then contacted Storytelling, I think is how it went. And so, before I had even become her official boyfriend, she's having to deal with my crazy mom accusing me of impregnating her. Like, it was out of control. And I remember that was the first time since she'd married Vincent, who I was still not comfortable around, that I just went off on her. Like, when I got home that night and found out that it had gotten back to Storytelling, I was furious. And I was yelling and screaming at her to the point where Vincent had asked me to calm down.
Did he really?
But I think he already knew that Mom was going through some shit.
Did you tell him you're not my dad? I never got the chance to use that on him.
No, we still have plenty of chances. But Vincent doesn't try and impose, and that's why I appreciate him. But in this one particular instance, like, I was going off on her. And I remember my friend Patrick at the time, like, he was on my side, and I ended up spending, like, a couple nights at his house. And then I don't come back until you and your wife, who you just started seeing too.
I think we were married.
Were you?
I don't know.
It was right around that time, sure.
Yeah, because you didn't start dating storytelling until like after I got married.
That's true. Okay,
Yeah.
so it was right around that same time. And for whatever reason, Mom and Vincent you were living in Yakima at the time. I was going to go visit with you, and Mom and Vincent were going to follow in their car. And you showed up with your wife, and I don't think I'd have a chance to fill you in on all the mom stuff. And you showed up. It was probably like 6 p.m, and we thought you assumed that she'd be ready to go, and we were just going to turn back
Right.
around and go.
They're going to follow us to Yakima.
Right. And Mom at this point is still in her pajama pants. She hasn't gotten ready for the
And
day.
this is already the point where like I pretty much don't remember this happening. I remember that you've told me, but I don't remember it happening.
Yeah. And there's not much to it. I mean, all it was that it was like she was so far gone, and who knows if it was alcohol, too, at the time.
I remember a situation sitting in her house where she was just running back and forth.
And that's what this was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, Mom, we're ready to go here. It's going to get dark soon. We'd rather drive while it's still somewhat light outside. Please go change your clothes, and then we'll go. And then it was literally 4 different times where she would go in her room for minutes at a time and then come back out still in her pajama pants, and then we started piping.
Just,
what do you do?
saying something insane, too.
Right. Like, she was literally incoherent at certain points.
Yeah.
And then she would come back out and forget why she'd gone in there. And then she'd be like, all right, guys, calm down. I'll go change. She'd leave for another 5 minutes, come back out, and forget she had that conversation. And so much of that had to have been played up thinking back on it now.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's nuts now, but
That's
like
the
she
thing,
can still carry a
She was
conversation.
fucking faking it. Like, that's what's so...
Do you think so? Because Vincent told me in confidence, and I'm telling our listeners in confidence, that she went in for depression and got put on a bunch of meds after that.
Whatever.
So maybe that calmed her down a little bit. But, yeah, like it was just – and I moved out very shortly after that, especially after the storytelling thing. I couldn't believe it.
But wasn't that a
the
situation...
fact that she had watched the Sally Jesse and created fact in her head and decided it was her responsibility – even if I did fucking impregnate her, it's not as big a deal as Mom was making it out to be.
Yeah. And wasn't that a case of where, like, I was yelling at her in front of Vincent and in front of my brand new wife who's probably barely met her, and
Yeah.
the whole
That's
thing
always-
is bad. Maybe
you
that's
know-
why I choose not to remember very much of it.
Maybe that's why you've only had one girlfriend and ultimately your wife. Because let me tell you, and I've only had a few, but introducing them to Mom or Dad for the first time, there's so much backstory that I have to provide. And Melissa, our little sister, the last girl I dated, Pincushion, God, I felt like I was prepping her for weeks before she met Mom and Dad and Melissa. And she was still ill prepared. And every girlfriend I have, especially when it comes to our sister with, mental disability, they think they're going to come in and fix everything. You know what? We should just take her for a couple of weeks. Let's just take her. She'll be in a better environment. Your mom's not doing well right now. So then we end up taking my sister for a couple of weeks, and they're sick of her by the second day. And I'm like, I told you this would happen,
You took Melissa in with your girlfriend for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, storytelling specifically. But even with Pincushion, like, her big plan was that, and this is ridiculous. This is only like a year ago. But her big plan was that, obviously someday her and I were going to be married. And then we would we don't want to marry until we're in a financial position to take Melissa in and let her live with us permanently.
What?
Yeah.
You were agreeing to that?
When it comes to our little sister, I've had a lot of extensive discussions recently about, her environment now, the age she is, the progress she hasn't made that she could have. And, yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. I remember being freaked out shortly after you got married when I was still living in Tacoma. You called me drunk out of your mind one night at like 1 a.m. and you presented the scariest question ever, which was, what if Mom and Dad were to die tomorrow? Who in the fuck is responsible enough to take care of Melissa?
Yeah.
And that's something I continue to think about. It's easy enough to push, and this sounds terrible being her eldest brother, but I'm able to push her out of my head for periods of time because I don't live in the same town as her, and it's very easy for me to ignore her poorly spelled text messages. But like when I'm around her, especially like when it's a big function, and we'll get to this when I was with Mom most recently, because I did have a heart-to-heart with our little sister Melissa, but like she is more fucked up than she needs to be because of the living situation she's in. And I've had recent conversations with friends who will go unnamed about, whether or not it's our responsibility to take care of her. Is it our responsibility to call CPS because she has pubic lice because of the house she lives in? Is that too much?
No.
I'm saying it's not right for her to live there. And I know that your big concern when I brought this up was, well, foster parents are going to touch her and blah, blah, blah. You've watched too much Lifetime,
That
friend.
is 100% not what I said. I did not say foster parents are going to touch her. I said, why would you send her off into foster care just randomly when there's no saying that is going to be any better of an environment for her? You know what I mean? And the only thing that's going to make it worse is the fact that she's never been there before and she's scared.
Okay, if we break it down, though...
People who are foster parents are in it for... I think you've been watching too much Lifetime where they take in the retarded kid and they're like, oh, I want you as my own, and then they fight the mother for custody, although mom would have no problem signing that shit over.
I know. She'd put up a fuss at first.
Just they're doing it for money. You know what I mean? They're doing it because the state pays them money to do it. So there's nothing to say that just because they're a foster parent, that means that that's a good place. What I said was, why don't you go pick a foster family and then put all that shit in motion?
Even if it came to just that, though, still, I think Melissa's better off being in a foster home, whether they're in it for the money or not.
Not just some random foster home, no.
I'm not saying that, but even if it was, worst case scenario, some random foster home and they were just doing it for the check, at least she'd be living in a sanitary environment.
You don't know that.
We do know that because those are things that get checked up on regularly when people know to monitor it.
When the daycare inspection people would come over, mom would clean the house that day.
No, I would.
And it would get clean. There you go. So when they come over, the place was clean. That doesn't tell you what it's going to look like 2 days from then.
I don't know. And also there's the touchy thing about her being, almost 17 now?
Yeah.
And then what are they going to do? I think if we took action within this year, though, and found somewhere for her to be, then when she is 18, she'll have a lot more prospects. They have programs that continue after they're 18, depending on their progress. I'm sure of it.
I wish you lots of luck with that. I won't stand in your way.
Well, that's good, I guess.
Nor will I be involved in the slightest bit. I think it's a bad idea.
How is it... Okay, you've already answered, and I disagree. I'm just saying you're not even willing to consider it, though, which is a little frustrating.
Well, because I just think that randomly placing her just in some stranger's house is not the way to go.
Well, let's ask Lori to take her in, then.
Why don't you take her in? Why don't you go get married and have Melissa live with you and be your daughter?
That was the plan a year ago, but now I don't have a girlfriend or a job.
I have good things that you don't know about.
Play Brotherhood!
I'll carry a memo pad in my pocket, my back pocket, and take orders for anything, and I will acquire everything. Shoes, CDs, Zippo lighters, concert tickets. I'll be just like Parker Lewis. This was his life, seeing a character on television, in the movies, or reading someone in a book and needing to be that person.
Have you explained what this is? More importantly, have you been watching? You're not caught up on Parker Lewis season 1.
No. 2 discs in only. This is my autobiography.
And so far it's just turned into 4 pages about how you wish you had arches?
How I used to... Well, I still pretty much wish I had arches in my
Really?
head.
I could see when Good Will Hunting came out, that being the thing, but
when I grow
I think it looks dumb now.
When my hair's long enough, it falls in my face like that, and I like it.
My hair falls on my face, but it's too curly to try the arches.
I know, and I have such an in-between thing. Like, I would like it as curly as yours or just, like, straight and normal, but I'm, like, somewhere in between. I just have, like, these big waves.
Yeah, because my hair does get so curly when I let it grow out, a part of me wishes, because I can't have it, that I wish I did have straight hair. But curly hair is actually better in the long run, I think.
Yeah, I think so, too.
You pretty jealous of my hair when it gets long sometimes?
Someone at work was, like, walking behind me. A girl is not bad looking. And she was like, PJ, I love all the cute little curls in your hair. And she probably saw the back of my neck turn bright fucking red. I thought about it for like hours afterwards.
Well, we kept it high and tight our whole growing up because we grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses. We've talked about the Flowbee and how, Dad was obsessed with that one thing in our lives, cutting our hair, basically. Yeah. So it was always short, and it wasn't until after I'd left the religion and had a job where they didn't care. And then I just went fucking nuts and let my hair grow as long as it wanted. And I can remember, like, growing up as a teenager, like, when it would start to curl in the back, because it would get a little longer, it would drive me insane.
Yeah.
And I need to get it cut immediately. Whereas now, like, I encourage the growth.
I
And
have
it has to be somebody else that, intervenes and says, hey, you should probably get that cut a little bit.
even when I am growing my hair long, I still have to keep those curls and back in check because they just don't work.
Yeah, your hair looks a little awkward when it gets longer. Like you said, because it can't decide whether it's straight or curly.
Yeah. I straightened it once. That looked bad.
You did?
Well, I used to flat iron it, like, for whatever, just to, like, be funny. I
At
guess.
what age?
Oh, I don't know, mid-20s when I was married and had a wife who had a hair straightener. But then I chemically straightened it once, and that's when I had to cut it last time because it just looked awful.
You wouldn't think so, though. Like, how can you fuck up straight hair?
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the diary thing, and I think it was the same.
Didn't she have a name? Didn't she have a title for her diary?
I don't know. I think she wanted to make it a book, right? That was the whole idea.
Yeah, eventually, yes.
I think it was that time I was there.
Which is hilarious for anybody that's ever seen a text or anything written
Right.
by mom.
Right.
Like, it would be unreadable, even with an editor's touch.
Yeah. And I think it was the time when they were going to all follow us back, and storytelling was there, and Mom was just trying to hand off her diary because she wanted to be a book editor or something like that. Your girlfriend did.
Right. And that's what it was. I just barely started dating her. She said something in passing maybe once to Mom, or Mom asked me, what does she want to do? Now, that doesn't sound like a mom question.
Yeah.
Either way, it came to Mom's attention that storytelling, who I just started dating, was interested in editing, like book editing. And so Mom, she pulls out her finest piece of work, her only accomplishment in a life, and gives it to storytelling, and she's not hiding the fact from me, but I think it's awfully weird that this girl just came into my life. I've already warned her how weird Mom is, and Mom's like, here's all my personal feelings spilled out onto paper.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you take a look at this, edit it, and then send it back
I've
to me?
already said she was going nuts at the time, making a spectacle of herself, not caring who saw.
What?
It's all gone.
All gone.
Put it in the sink.
Good girl. I forget where we left off.
Sorry. Sorry that my kid's a distraction.
No. I think it adds a dimension to the show. Especially if you say something right now, Sophie. No, never mind. Bye.
Just that she was making such a big spectacle of herself, and she didn't care who saw all these like hateful towards at least one of her kids ramblings.
Yeah. And you know what? I was at the point in my life when she gave that to storytelling that I had no interest. I didn't care. I just thought it was really weird, and that sat in storytelling's possession for like 3 months.
Really? And
then the next time she saw Mom, she just gave it back and said, "Sorry, I didn't have the time."
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I encouraged her. Let's have nothing to do with this. You know. And it's Mom has spell check even on her most ancient of computers. Like, it's something that she didn't need an editor for.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Anyway, I guess that's about it for the diary.
Yeah, I thought there was more to it. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Oh, shoot, I need to find my phone for those.
What was that, episode 47? One Big Happy Disaster?
Yeah.
I called Mom at the beginning of that episode. I hear the audio wasn't that great, so I apologize. But basically, I thought she was calling to give me sympathy about losing my job, but instead she was just trying to con me into going over there. And this is the thing about Mom, is she invites me. It's my birthday last month, and it's also our stepdad Vincent's birthday is approximately the same time. So she's going to throw some kind of mutual party, But what's frustrating is she could give a shit about me, really, and based on the presents that I'll go through that I got, I think that's all the more clear. But really, and people know this that have listened to the show because we complain about it so much. But she's, I had confirmed that day, didn't I, on the episode?
Yeah.
That I would make an appearance there, and yet maybe it was 3 or 4 weeks in between when I confirmed that day and when the party actually was, and I would get a text literally one every other day confirming that I'm going to be there, and then a follow-up text that says, I sure wish your brother would show up and bring that beautiful granddaughter of mine, over and over again. Like, she has less interest in seeing either of us than she does in flaunting herself around the baby.
Oh, big time.
And I think, as we explained before, most of it is because her sister's living with her now, strangely, and she wants to show her that, hey, I'm a grandma, I can do this, you know?
Even though she can't do it.
I So you had made it clear, although I don't appreciate that right up until the last minute you were a cock tease about it.
Kind of. I did have to work. A guy got married and I had to work. The day before, I ended up giving away the shift so that I didn't have to work that day. But we were house sitting and we couldn't leave the dogs. We couldn't leave the dogs.
That's right. But even up until, because we weren't sure if my bus was going to show up or if I could get my ticket changed
So
over.
I might have been teasing you about whether or not I was going to go. But as far as Mom knew, I wasn't going.
No, that's true. I'm saying as far as I'm concerned.
Right, okay.
Up until the day of, basically, there was still a slight chance that you were going to make the trip with me, which would have made it so much better for me. Only because, as a reminder, our aunt's living with our mom. Also, my cousin, Devin, that I hadn't seen in 10 years, and her kids are there. And if you'd been there and Sophie, my niece, had been there, I feel like I would have been more comfortable, well, in the sense that we would have just branched off in a corner and not talked to anybody. But instead, I was put right in the middle of it. And you know what? I will say when I got there, it was fun. More fun than I was expecting. I wasn't sure what to take away. When I knew that I was seeing Devin for the first time in 10 years, I had no idea what to expect. And I thought it was a little weird that she'd left her only son with Mom at that trashy house for like months, I think, before she came and picked him up. So I was like, oh, that seems kind of trashy. But then when I showed up, Devin was right out of the gate the only one I felt like I could talk to. And we're approximately the same age, whatever. Like, and she had never been to Washington before, let alone Seattle. Well, this was Tacoma, but so I was having a good time. I was actually having a really good time, mainly because I brought a ton of beer with me, and there was beer there. And so I was drinking with Vincent, whose company I do enjoy, and Devin, and Denise is fine, and even Mom's, she's just doing her thing where, oh, I'm so glad you can make it, and didn't mention much about the baby at the beginning, and so I was relieved for that. One weird thing that happened was a little into the evening. I'd been there a couple hours, and it was time to eat dinner, and our little sister Melissa had kind of shut down and wasn't going to eat, and to the point where she was crossing her arms. She's like, I'm not hungry. And anybody that knows Melissa knows that she's always hungry, so I thought that was really weird. And Mom was asking her, Melissa, this makes it worse, of course, Melissa, you're not going to eat? What's wrong with you? That's making it better in front of her extended family. But I don't want to say I have to be drunk to be open with Melissa, but if you talk to Melissa like an adult, she'll surprise you if you give her the chance. But it's just this weird thing that she does, partly because of her disability and partly because of the fucked up environment she lives in. But she will do the thing where, your wife, for instance, Melissa's here in Yakima for a couple of weeks, and you had said that one of the very first nights that your wife went and it was just your wife and Melissa, our sister. Yeah. And she was completely normal, right? Mm-hmm. And then
until the second I got home from work.
It's something about her immediate family, me, you, Mom, or Dad, where she shuts down and she starts doing her fucking baby voice, and nobody can handle being around her anymore.
I have to ask her to repeat herself constantly.
Yeah. But I could see she was acting weird this night. She wasn't eating, she wasn't talking. And so I asked her to come outside while I smoked a cigarette, and then blew the smoke right in her face. And I asked her, hey, what's going on? And her whole thing at the time was, I had not been there very long, and already the idea was being pitched around, you should spend the night, Nick. You should spend the night. Which is a horrifying prospect because the house is so gross. And there are so many people staying in it.
Had I shown up with my wife and kid, they would have been pressuring us the same way.
Oh, sure. Too. Yeah, absolutely. That's what she does. Because they were going to go to the zoo the next day, and they wanted me to come along with that. And it was a Saturday. I have no job. But I didn't want to commit to it because I didn't like to think about the idea of sleeping anywhere there. So I said, let me think about it. And then apparently that's what had upset our sister so much was that when I called her outside and said, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you eating? Why aren't you talking? I'm just worried that you're not going to spend the night tonight. And I'm like, you know what? Whether or not I decide to spend the night, I'm here now. Why not enjoy that time with me, Shut up.
Hi, babe.
You want to say hi to Mom?
Hi.
So I'm really having an open dialogue with Melissa like I've never had before. I have, but only when and it's sad to say, but a little inebriated. I'm like, all right, I'm going to tackle this head on, And so I was talking to her, and so, her whole thing was that I was possibly going to not spend the night. And so I said the thing, I'm here now. Let's enjoy this time. And then she starts to really open up to me to the point where I was so impressed that I called you almost immediately after. Mm-hmm. But she let's see. When did Mom stop listening to the show?
Oh, I don't know. A while ago.
What episode put it over the top for her?
Maybe the daycare one where we talked about her daycare.
Yeah. So, Mom, as much as she still tries to get us to come over all the time, she has no interest in listening to the show. She finally learned, I guess, that it's just going to offend her if she listens.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, and this is kind of fucked up to say, but I didn't even know Melissa had the capability to do this. But Melissa has been secretly behind Mom's back, been downloading the show and listening to it, which I had no idea that was even a possibility. And I was a little freaked out when she first told me that. Not that we go too into like who Melissa is as a person, but still, like, she's heard some fucked up shit. Although I almost wonder, and maybe this is just me being a dickhead, but I almost wonder how much she's taking away from it. And so I asked her, I'm like, well, what do you think of the show? And she says, I like it. But basically what it boiled down to was she listens because she misses us and she likes to hear our voice.
Yeah.
So I don't think it matters. In fact, she complains that we don't talk about her enough. But then I think, and I know you've been hearing a lot about this since she came to visit here, but I think it's my fault that she thinks she has a chance of being on the show. Because
Yeah.
at the time, like, I was all primed on the idea, which I realize now is a horrible... We don't need to bring our 16-year-old mentally disabled sister on the show.
It's
and
just
ask
that
her
if we
questions
put a
about-
mic in front of her, you don't know if she's actually going to talk and open up or if she's just going to mumble the whole time.
Well, we got to get her drunk first.
Right, exactly.
But so I'd called you. I was like, holy shit, this is the most open conversation I've ever had with her. And I was a little touched that she continues to listen, even though, whether she takes anything away from it or not. I just thought the whole thing was crazy. And then, of course, Melissa being Melissa, though, the second I proposed the idea of her being on the show, she won't shut the fuck up about it. And I did end up spending the night, and by the next day, she had run around and told everybody except for Mom, "Oh, I might be on the show. I might be on the show."
Yeah.
Did you guys know I listened to the show behind my mom's back?
She said it a lot since she's been here.
I know it's her new thing now. So I realized she's basically the same Melissa. I just shared one moment with her and thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But I was still having fun that night, and by that time, Melissa opened up a little and was being herself again, and we were all having a great time. I remember at one point, they had rolled. I brought marijuana cigarettes, or no, I brought marijuana. Vincent rolled it. Doesn't matter. Mom and I go out to the garage to smoke it at one point, and I, in the same way that I had to be drunk to talk to Melissa, I had to be high to talk to Mom. It's weird. Mm-hmm. But we were in the garage, and I remember she was just. At this point, she wasn't being aggressive. She hadn't had too much to drink yet, but the pot really opened her up in the sense that we stood out there for 15 minutes and talked about my opinion on why her relationship with you and with her granddaughter Sophie is as fucked up as it is. Like, she was asking pointed questions about why it was this way. And so I told her, I said, a lot of it has to do with your alcoholism. And she immediately accused me of being hypocritical, or you of being hypocritical about that. But I made the point that,
Which is what you should do when you're trying to figure out how do we fix this, is just pass the buck and accuse everybody else of shit.
Right. And I guarantee she didn't use the word hypocritical. But so that's where the conversation really started. And then as the night went on, we were all having fun. One of the great presents Mom got me was the Seinfeld trivia game, the board game. And so we were all crowded around. Everybody that wanted to win knew to be on my team, and I did win. But yeah, like, Mom just we were all drinking a lot, but her drinking started to get out of control. Like, every time she went to the kitchen, which was every 5 minutes, she was taking a shot of tequila or rum or whatever was open, and to the point where it was embarrassing for everybody. Her oldest sister is there, her niece, who she hasn't seen in 10
Her
years.
oldest living sister.
Right. I should have clarified. And we're all sitting around, and this whole time she's having this text. This whole time she's having a text exchange with you. And she's not really giving us either end of it, but she's getting more and more agitated as the night goes along.
Well, the text was that this was on a Saturday, and she wanted for them all to come to my house on Tuesday for a visit.
That's right.
That's what she was asking.
Which is so convenient for you to just hop in the car with your kid and drive for 3 hours to hang out really uncomfortably with Mom.
No. She wanted all of them to come to my house. And
that's right. That's
Tuesday.
right. Yeah.
Which I would have been immediately on board with, except for I texted you, will you come with them? And you were not going to come with them.
I was pissed at you for not coming with me to that very event.
Yeah, you weren't going to come with them. So then that's when, and I didn't tell her no. I said something like, what time are you going to come? how long are you going to be here? Are you going to stay the night? Because, like, my apartment is really small. And that's what I told her. I was like, just tell, like, the 7-8 people you're bringing with you, let them know that, because I know she's just excited. Oh, I want to come. But let them know how small the area is that we're all going to be sitting around for this visit. I live in a small apartment.
You have to, though, mom's mentality. Denise has been staying with her, and Denise's grandkid, and for this time that I was there, Devin and her other kid, and me ended up spending the night. So, and her house is not only approximately the same size as your apartment, but it's disgusting.
But Mom,
she doesn't think about things like that. She doesn't care,
and she wants
she'll crash on your couch with her belly hanging out, and not have a problem with it.
And she wants to smoke joints and stuff like that. And can we go into the baby's room and smoke a joint? And
she's not in there right now.
Anything like that. So I told her that, and then like I just got a text back. Like, she was bugging me about it, and I'm like, just thinking, fuck, yes, come, whatever, because I realized that my cousin Devin wants to see Sophie.
Yeah, she was really primed to see the baby.
I don't know why. I don't know her that well.
It doesn't. It's just because, when you go into mom's house, as gross as it is a shrine to your daughter. Yeah. So there are a lot of cute pictures of her. And, that'll make anybody want to see a kid, especially that they're vaguely related to.
Okay, well, so fine. So I tell Mom, I'm like, warn them of all that. That's fine. Plus, I'm already not getting along with Mom. I mean, I never am, but, like, particularly this week, when she's still calling me every day and not understanding why I'm not going to come visit. So she just writes back, never mind. And I'm like, never mind what? Like, you didn't just make me waste
You wrote never mind what?
Yeah, never mind what? Like, you just made this a big thing. I agreed to it. Now it's never mind. And she's like, you just make it seem like it would be such an imposition. And I was like,
which it would be.
Yeah. And you know what? I was like, you know what? It fucking would be. Don't try to give me a guilt trip. If you want to see me more often, maybe you shouldn't have treated me like such a piece of shit my entire growing up. I know you're not going to do anything to change that now, but all you do is deny it ever happened. And you don't understand that those are the memories I have of you. They're not all drank away like her memories of me. I don't want to be around you. That's why I'm not around. And then I never got any text back from her. I didn't see your end of it.
Well, like I said, we were all playing board games. Mom was getting progressively drunker. We were all consistently drinking, and yet Mom was out of control. I mentioned her belly hanging out. Like, that's something she does. She's a bigger lady.
She's a half shirt wearer.
It's not a half shirt, except for she pulls it up and she rubs her belly in front of everybody. Yeah. And it's disgusting. It's nauseating. And she does that, like, even when we'll go, like, to the zoo the next day,
it's like
her belly is hanging out of her shirt. How can you be so unaware of yourself?
Yeah, I can't stand to be around that.
It's disgusting. Like, I feel like the biggest piece of white trash whenever I hang out with them, even though Vincent's black. But no, so this whole text exchange is going on, but the only thing I'm seeing is, take another shot, look at my phone. Your brother is a fucking asshole. And in front of everybody, I'm like, that's not cool. Wait, what? And I know that you're probably egging her on, whatever else. I mean...
Being honest with her for the first time in a long time.
Which she can't stand. But yeah, like, and then she calls me outside at one point, and I think she actually brings the liquor bottle out with her. And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with him? And her big defense the whole time, which is ridiculous, and I will relay it now. I don't care what happened between me and your brother when he was a kid. That has nothing to do with my relationship with my granddaughter. And I'm like, Mom, are you insane? That has everything to do with it. Because of the way you treated PJ, he doesn't want you to be around his daughter. I don't find that to be so hard to understand.
It's not that I don't want her to be around
Shut
my
up.
daughter.
Yes, it is.
It's that I don't want to be around her. She's not going to be around my daughter if I'm not there, and I don't want to be around her. I'm not going to leave her in the care of someone who carries a liquor bottle to every room of the house with her.
No, I understand that, but...
I don't care if we had the greatest relationship growing up on Earth. If Mom was where she's at now, I'm not going to leave my daughter there without me.
Which is completely understandable. Yeah. That would be irresponsible of you. But she'll never see it. She'll never come clean.
And if you tell her that that's the reason, all it is like, well, your Aunt Lori drinks. Yeah, there's a difference between, like, drinking and, like, the way you drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're never worried about Sophie's safety around Lori.
Right. And, Mom, drunk or no, but usually she is, I feel like it's almost an endangerment. Like,
yeah.
It's not safe to leave her around there just because she's so aloof.
She's not looking out for the well-being of the child. All she's looking for is photo opportunities. I mean, when Sophie was a week old, she's flashing that bright-ass flash in her face
just
to get one more shot. I mean, It's not about the kid. It's about like what the kid represents. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you think that she'd have as much interest in Sophie if she was ugly?
I don't know. Some people might think Sophie's ugly. Anyway, your version of it. So she's screaming about what a fucking asshole I am.
Yeah, but that's basically it. Like I said, her only defense the whole time was that it shouldn't matter what relationship she had with you.
Yeah, but then when you're with there's a lot more to go into about this. Even when you're with Denise and Devin in Seattle the next day. Like, Mom's thing is like, I want them to meet Sophie, and PJ am being selfish because I'm not going to let them meet Sophie. But then they want to come to Yakima on their own since there's so much shit going between me and Mom. But they know that that's not okay with Mom.
Right.
So that just shows through right there is that, no, you don't just want them to meet because now you're like making them feel guilty if they did it without you.
Right.
You want them to see you holding this kid. And Sophie is terrified of her because she doesn't know her that well. And all Mom does is stick a camera and flashing lights in her face and just
demand her to pose as a not even 2-year-old.
Pose, sit there for half an hour while I figure out how to push the button.
Sophie, kiss Peyton. Kiss Peyton again.
Let me hold you in uncomfortable, unnatural situations. Like, the baby doesn't like that.
Yeah.
But that's what Mom wants to be doing. She wasn't cool with her sister and niece coming to see them on their own.
When I talked to Sophie about this, she's also grossed out by Mom's belly.
Yeah, who wouldn't be? So then I'm getting texts from Denise. And
at the time or recently?
No. This is more recently. This was after that. And
you don't want me to tell the Seattle story?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, there's not. It's just going along with what you said really quick because Mom lives in Tacoma. I'd gone there. I spent the night. I went to the zoo with them the next day. That was fine. And then I went back home to Seattle. And our cousin Devin was leaving with her kids approximately 2 days later. She says, hey, maybe I'll give you a call and you can give me a tour of Seattle. I've never been there. Mm-hmm. And she wants to see all the touristy stuff. So I said, that's fine. Like I said, I got along fine with Devin. So I get a text from her mom, Denise, a couple days later saying, hey, we're going to Seattle today. Do you want to hang out? I'm not working. I don't really care. I literally showed up wearing a swimsuit and flip-flops. Like it's not something I took that seriously. But at the same time, I took him to Pike Place Market. We went to Seattle Center. And it was fun. And Mom wasn't there. It was Denise and Devin and Devin's 2 kids and our sister Melissa. That was a curveball.
I didn't know Melissa was there.
Yeah, it was fine. But, throughout the day, I hung out with them maybe 3 or 4 hours. And then I bailed. And they were going back anyway. But throughout that day while I was hanging out with them, Denise would get on the sly text from Mom where Mom would text Denise and ask, is PJ there? Did he bring the baby? Thinking that they're going around Mom's back to see the baby. And that ties back into your point where it's not about them meeting the baby. It's about Mom not being there. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
It's about them seeing Mom having a grandkid.
And the funny thing is Denise is not supposed to be don't tell him I'm texting this. And Denise is like, no, Jackie, PJ's not here. It's just Nick. And then Mom would be like, it's okay, Denise. It's okay. I don't mind. Blah, blah, blah. Like she was convinced that Denise was lying to her. It's so ridiculous. So they never ended up meeting the baby and never will.
But she sent me then Denise sends me a text. This is probably a couple weeks ago. And it was about wanting to go to the Puyallup Fair. Devin's going to come back to Washington. They're going to go to the Puyallup Fair.
Coming up in September, yeah.
And did I have any plans to go to the Puyallup Fair? Because maybe we can work it all out together. I said, well, we took Sophie there for her first birthday. This year she'd actually be able to ride the rides. We could probably do that. That's doable. So she ends up sending me the dates. It's from the September 11th, which is in such bad taste, until the end of the month and all this kind of stuff. And I almost text her like, now this will be just you guys, right? Like my mom's not going to be there because A, there's all this other shit with Mom, and B, when I go to the fair, I want to have fun. It's going to be a little awkward with Denise and Devin being there. It's going to be a million
But not so bad. I did it in Seattle, and it was fine.
But if Mom and Vincent and Melissa were there, and they're walking around hinting out, buy me a corn dog and shit like that, and just not being able to afford to do anything, what do you want to do now?
Mom, I'm hungry.
And
better ask your brother. He's the one with the money.
Manhandling Sophia and ruining her fun. You know what I mean? That's not what I want to do. But I felt like I didn't need to ask that question because I thought Denise was making that very clear in the text. Like, Devin and I are going Devin,
which is the same as the Seattle text. Like, she made it clear to me, I'm going with my daughter to hang out in Seattle. We want you to come. Your mom won't be there.
So then all of a sudden,
Which is sad that she knows that that's the tactic to take.
a week or two later, my world shatters, and now I'm not going, at least not to meet up with any of them, because I get a text from Mom. Denise said something about maybe all of us meeting up for the fair. Do you know what date you're going?
Ugh.
I respond, no. She said her and Devin might go if Devin is in Tacoma. Okay, so that's just like, no, I don't know what date I'm going. And just to make it clear, this was not something that all of us, had planned on doing. This was between Denise and I, and you're ruining it. And the last time Denise wanted to come with just her and Devin and drive to Yakima, she guilted her out of it. So then I get a text the very next day, out of nowhere. The spelling is always bad. You can tell the drunkenness in this one. I did the best.
What time of day was this sent?
This was 6:06.
Oh, yeah, she's hammered.
I did the best I could raising you, and I love you guys. The ball is in your court. That is not.
You've been trying from the beginning to have the ball in your court for any second.
Yeah. So I tell Denise I'll meet her at the fair if you allow it. I have no interest in spending my daughter's birthday hearing this ridiculousness from you. And the whole time I'm like, Nick, check out what I'm typing now. Check this out. And you're saying, don't be such an asshole.
I was not saying that.
So
I think you do tend to be more aggressive than you need to. Like, you could say that same exact thing in half as many words.
Well, I'm standing up. So I say, I'm not hearing this ridiculous from you. 2 minutes after that, I did the best I could raising you, and I love you guys. The ball's in your court. Just a resend.
She probably did that by accident.
I respond, you are out of control. Leave me alone.
And no response back?
No response
That's
back.
saying a lot. She
That's
must
where
be
we stand.
drowning her sorrows,
I'm not
man.
going to see her at the fair. I don't want to hang out with her anymore. And I can't be guilted into it. I don't feel like it's my job.
I think she just thinks
Listeners?
it's so irrational because you're technically an adult. She's at the point where she's technically a grandmother. There should be no reason. And again, going back to her only argument, this fucked up relationship I have with my son should not be enough that he prevents me from seeing his daughter.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you're trying to raise her in an environment where she has a chance to be normal when she grows up.
Yeah, but when she's around, too, Mom's always bringing up old shit and just versions of it that aren't true.
Yeah. Especially when she gets around you, because I think it's more seldom than she sees me, obviously. She's always, she gets in defensive mode. Well, whether you're flipping shit at her or not, she's always in a position where you're remembering everything wrong, PJ.
Yeah. Who's the drunk one? You know what I mean?
Depends on the day.
I remember. I remember what happened. Listeners, if you think I should go to the fair with my mom, we're going to do a poll, and it's up to you.
Really? If our listeners came through and said, go to the fair, you wouldn't listen to them.
If I got 2 emails, I'd be so ecstatic to get the fucking email. I might do it.
Where might they email you at?
Yeah, really. Well, we've got PJ at planbrotherhood.com, or do we?
No, we do. That's what I was getting at.
Okay, so there's PJ at planbrotherhood.com, Nick at planbrotherhood.com.
Don't involve me in this, listeners.
Info at planbrotherhood.com. We've got twitter.com/planbrohood. We've got a Facebook group page you can join. And as always, our photo albums are always
You can leave MySpace right out of this, aren't you?
myspace.com/planbrotherhood.
Where people
and
can
you know
go,
what?
they can enjoy pictures related to each show.
Our Libsyn page, planbrotherhood.libsyn.com. Palo's been leaving comments there.
Palo, we already gave him a shout out on a previous.
Yeah, but this
or
one's going up
future
first.
Okay.
Palo leaves comments there. It's a good little forum. You know how it is.
Yeah.
That's all Comedy and everything else's homepages is their Libsyn page.
Do you think we should change our podcast title to Comedy and Everything Else Junior?
I would love that.
I know you would.
Brotherhood.